Today we're going to be looking at CoGenerator, also known as MicrosoftCaboodle. It's one of the things that was publicly announced coming out of MVP Summit, and what it is a replacement for James Montenego's plugins. We use these plugins for accessing things like GPS, settings, and a bunch of different things. But there's been requests from the community to actually have an officially supported package provided by Microsoft, and Caboodle is the solution. So you can play around it right now. There hasn't been any blog posts, but if you want to be an early adopter and see what's going on, just head to GitHub, CoGenerator, and right down there on the page you'll see there's no installation instructions. That's because it's early adopter territory, but that doesn't stop us from playing right now. The source code's available. Likewise, builds seem to be running. And if Caboodle is anything like all the other Xamarin builds, they should be producing artifacts. So let's go have a look. Alright, so build 98 here. It was kicked off early this morning. Let's have a look at the artifacts. I can't find it. Well, I've already downloaded the package, so let's just go have a look at it. If you know Jenkins a little bit better, feel free to leave a message and let me know whereabouts it's attached. Rather than spending time searching for it, let's just use whatever I got. Alright, so the first tool I'm using here is IlSpy. If you're not familiar with it, it allows you to open an assembly and look at not just the IL, but also the source code. If you use .NET Peak, you can take this to generate a project file. Alright, here's version 96. So Caboodle is interesting because it is the first Microsoft project that's using multi-targeting. We've been using multi-targeting ever since January last year in the community. In ReactiveUI and other projects, NVM Cross is moving towards this. And what multi-targeting is, it allows you to have a single CS proj and it can compile to multiple different platforms. In the case of ReactiveUI, we multi-target to 13 different platforms. Here, it looks like we're just doing the standard Android, UWP, iOS, and Net Standard. So let's dig into the source code and see how the multi-targeting works. Alright, the secret sauce for multi-targeting, because this is not something officially supported by Microsoft yet, this is a community-led initiative, is on line 44, and that's MSBuild SDK Extras. That's a private package made by Oren Nonatovi, and that's what allows us to do multi-targeting. He's done a whole bunch of blog posts that teach you how to do this, but the real secret sauce here is, you can see on line 50, 54 and 57, there's conditional includes. So it looks at when the compiler is running, which target platform we're actually targeting, and then it conditionally includes files based on a convention. Here they use a convention of the file name. In ReactiveUI we use a convention of which folder is it in. So let's go have a look at how ReactiveUI works. Alright, so here's the platforms folder, and I think we're going to see this convention become more common. Rather than a convention based on file name, it's going to be a convention based on folder, and that folder is going to be the TFM, or the target framework moniker. So for ReactiveUI, we put all the Android-based stuff in the Android platforms folder, and it automatically gets included by the MSBuild includes. Anyway, that's enough backstory. Let's look at Caboodle. Alright, so let's have a look at the iOS version. So what Caboodle is it's basically the replacement for James Montenegro's plugins. And what we're going to be looking for is event handlers. And with the reactive extensions, there is an observable from event handler, and it takes event handlers and converts them into observables. So we've opened up the iOS assembly, and I'm going to look for any event handlers to find in that assembly. Likewise, I'll probably have to co-generate the event handlers in the net standard assembly. So let's see what's going on. Alright, bingo. So this is the first event that I'm going to have to co-generate. So that's the battery changed events. Looks like there's some screen metric stuff that's going to need to be done. That's all. Probably more in the net assembly. Hey, Wintermule, good to see you. It's really good to actually be in the PST time zone. So I can actually, it's so much better time zone. Alright, so let's have a look at the net standard assembly. I'm going to expect a lot more event handlers within that. Interesting enough, it's the same amount of event handlers. Let's go look at the source code. Alright, so it looks like there only is 2 event handlers, and just shows us how early days it is with Caboodle. So only a few events are actually implemented. So let's look at device intro and battery and see what I can do with it. So ReactiveUI actually has a CoGenerator, and that's called EventGenerator, and that generates and converts event handlers into observables. And I've run a compile previously before, and this is the end result. So we have Android, iOS, Mac, and UWP. And each one of those platforms gets their own file, and within there is a whole bunch of wrappers that convert event handlers for that particular platform into observables. So let's just open it up and have a look how this works, because this is the baseline theory to be able to generate Caboodle. I'm going to have to look at the assembly and code generate it, but let's look at the end output and work backwards. Alright, so this is the Android Observables library. So I'm going to have to generate one of these for Caboodle, and as you can see, there on line 87, it's quite simple actually. It literally co-generates observable from pattern, the event handler, and returns back an observable. And it does this for each one of the event handlers found within the assembly. So what we're going to have to do is iterate through all the assemblies in Caboodle, either on the platform level or at the netstand level. Depending on how the design of this library evolves, we should be able to get away with just doing it at the net standard level, because that's kind of the thing that matters. But maybe not. Depends how they design the API service. If they expose some events that are platform specific, I'm going to have to co-generate platform specific code for it. So yeah, here's line 51 is all the speech recognizer events in Android. We take a speech recognizer, and what we do is we generate extension methods. So the way you would say to use this API in Android would be something like this. First, you need a speech recognizer. And then we would do events. And this event overload will give us access to all of the particular events, and it converts the event handler into observables. So at this point, I get the ability to take the beginning of speech and buffer received, and I can compose those two together as streams. So I can go, when there's a beginning of speech, wait for a particular amount of time until the buffer is filled by this amount, merge those two streams together and get an outcome. And each one of those is available as a extension method on events. So let's just get out of here. Let's go look at Caboodle. Likewise in the CS Proj, a very similar convention to the multi-targeting support, and I just conditionally include the file name based on which platform we're compiling. So we're going to have to do something similar for Caboodle probably, but Caboodle is not a platform, it's a library, and that poses some issues when you're packaging it up. Like, you cannot target Caboodle. What you can do is target the platforms Caboodle implements, and that is a small and slight little change, and because of that you actually have to create a separate package. So we're going to have ReactiveUI events.caboodle, and any platforms Caboodle targets, I'll be able to target those event handlers. But Caboodle is not a platform, so there's no way I could include it in the main ReactiveUI package. It has to be targeted as something separately. And in true Martha Stewart fashion, here's something I prepared earlier. Here's my CS Proj. I've scaffolded out for each one of the platforms. Probably too much right now. I could get away with just net standard, but yeah, it's the same old pattern applied to all the platforms and all libraries. So let's go look at the CoGenerator. Alright, on the left-hand side we've got the event viewer. So the event viewer and the event. Hey, welcome, Commander Keen. It's good to see you here. If you got any particular questions, let me know. I'm just burning time until my laundry is finished, so I'm down at the laundromat. So let me know if anything in particular interest, and I've got time, probably for another 20 minutes until the washing is done. Yeah, so EventBuilder is our CoGenerator. And it's a command line based utility, and you specify which platform you're going to code generate it. And the code generation is going to be different for each platform because each platform needs to have access to that platform's reference assemblies. So I'll show you the command line tool, and I'll show you how the reference assemblies work. It's pretty damn cool. We were able to get Mac compiling on Windows like a year and a half ago because we created our own private assembly pack, or private targeting pack as it's called. But thankfully, Chris Hammonds from Xamarin has actually saw the need, and he now ships a targeting pack. So we don't need to do our own targeting pack anymore, which is awesome. It's like less maintenance. So let's look at the event viewer application. We'll need to kick off a build, and while that's building, I'll show you how the build script works. Alright, here's our build script. Now, the most important thing when you're doing any build scripts, especially with Cake, is that you pin your dependencies. I cannot stress you that enough. So pinning dependencies is specifying the version. That way when it restores, it's always going to restore that particular version. And that means if an author publishes a new version with a breaking change, your builds don't break. And I've wasted so much time debugging builds because the dependency isn't pinned. And that's just there on line 10. It's specifying the version. So the ReactiveUI build script actually isn't just a build script. It's also continual delivery. So the concerns are kind of all mixed up, and it's a little bit complicated. But it's our way of being able to compile 13 different platforms in a single compilation step. And frankly, I've wasted so much time on CI and CD. There's probably better ways now, but I could be bothered. It works. When it breaks, I'll probably separate the build and the continuous delivery into two separate sections, but for now it's a single. Alright, on line 106 we got our event builder, and what event builder does is it just compiles it in the first step, And then once the command line tool is built, I then execute that per platform. Alright, and that's called the generate event step. So on line 135, in the sake of keeping things dry, I've just got a func or an action, and I reuse this action inline, and then I invoke it down below. Here it is on line 179 and downwards to 184. I'm literally just saying the platform is Android, and that's a command line argument, and then I'm pointing the destination directory because the event builder outputs a file. So I'm telling it where to output. Likewise, it can also output to the command line, and if you're not running it with this build script, it actually outputs to SDOut or command line. Cheers, Keen. Good seeing you. Nah, man, I just kind of learned over I go. I'm completely self-taught, and I kind of treat things like a bicycle lock. And if I don't understand it, I just kind of read a little bit, speak with people, and just keep digging. And with this approach, you kind of understand. It's really slow, but you understand all the layers and what goes down underneath, what goes on down underneath. Thanks, man. That's a really good compliment. I've actually never did CS. I'm currently reading through the usual algorithm books and revisiting that as I'm going down functional programming routes. But yeah, I just took a more manual approach. Alright, here we go. We've managed to build EventBuilder, and it's a command line utility. So how it works and how the Cake build scripts works, it actually specifies the platform on the command line, and I can override the reference assembly location. Now, specifying the reference assembly's location is important because since last year, these are no longer installed in a global location. Like, they are now installed anywhere that you install Visual Studio, and you can have multiple versions of Visual Studio installed side by side. So we now need to specify which version of reference assemblies we're going to use, because they used to be installed globally. Let's see if I can find them. used to be in program files in a folder called reference assemblies, and they're now moved. And for the build script on line 23, what it actually uses is a plugin called VSWare. And VSWare is published by Microsoft, I believe, and it does exactly what the name describes. It actually gives you a list where Visual Studio is installed. Because of the side-by-side, we can no longer assume it's installed in the global directory. As you can see here, the EventBuilder still expects things to be in the global directory. But the build script uses VSWare, and we'll be using that to point to the reference assemblies. Alright, so here's our reference assemblies. So it looks like they've moved actually into the Visual Studio install. So it's going to be under Common IDE Reference Assemblies. So that search should have shown them. Here they are. Alright, so here's the reference assemblies. And when you do a compile, it will need to resolve to the particular platform. So if you're compiling Android, it's going to want the reference assemblies for mono Android. And as long as it can resolve those reference assemblies, it doesn't matter about the fact if it's Mac or Windows or what else have you, it's just .NET. So you can use these reference assemblies on any platform and compile for that platform. So that's how we're able to compile Mac on Windows. So here they are. These are our reference assemblies. They're on your computer, everywhere. It's a magical treasure trove. If you want to learn more about this stuff, check out Sealer. Sealer by C#? Is typically the book people would recommend. Alright, so that's kind of the backstory and history. Let's work on Caboodle. Alright, so I need to update my build script, and I need to tell it to build Caboodle and output to the Caboodle's NuGet package. Alright, it's done. And likewise, let's start working on the EventBuilder. I've already done a little bit of work in here, but it doesn't cleanly compile. Yep, and this is why it doesn't completely compile. I've forgotten to actually pass the reference assemblies location. Fixed. So this is really bad code from this point forward, but it works. Oh, this is going to be a little bit rough, because the reference assemblies are going to be different per platform, and Caboodle multi-targets multiple platforms. So I might need to modify my build script to invoke Caboodle multiple times, one per platform I'm generating. Or I might maybe invoke Caboodle once and then take the reference assemblies and iterate those reference assemblies. I'm not sure yet which way I'm going to go. Alright, so how Caboodle works, it's going to be a NuGet package eventually, but they haven't actually published it to NuGet yet. So I'm probably just going to read the assembly from the parent working directory and just stub it all out until they publish it publicly. But I already have the logic for downloading from NuGet. We use it for Xamarin Forms. Unfortunately, it's not pinned. I need to work on that so it is pinned. Yeah. If you're looking for a way to help me out and do a pull request, pin the version of Xamarin Forms and get it the version that it should be by reading the two parent directories up and looking at which version I'm referencing in my package ref. So that would be really cool if the event generator used the same version that's referenced in the package ref for the Xamarin Forms package. And I'm talking about this. So look at that, and yeah. all these platforms, I actually had the original idea to make this work on Mono and so working on a Mac and Windows, i.e. Mono. But it's just so much effort. So I'm just going to start ripping out the support to work on Mono, and pretty much Event Generator only works on Windows. It's just a trade-off I've got to make. There's no particular reason why it couldn't work on Mono. It's just about product decisions. I wonder if I'm going to have to reference the assemblies for net standard. I wonder where they're sitting. That's right, the NuGet packages. It's going to be interesting. I might actually have to do a NuGet restore. Let's see. Alright, that should be enough to make it compile. Load up Visual Studio proper, step trace through it, and see what we get. While that loads, I'll be back in 2 minutes. I'm just going to go check on the washing. Hello, and welcome back. So EventBuilder is packaged in ReactiveUI in the actual Git repository, but it's a separate solution. And we've actually thought of extracting and lifting it out because it's got nothing to do with ReactiveUI. It just generates observables from event handlers. And a lot of people use this tool to generate observables for things like Telerik, progress, etc. Welcome back, Wintermeal. Alright, when we're doing development, we have just a special hook, and it only works if we're in a develop build, and it just hooks to see if the debugger is attached. If it does, it plumbs in command line utilities, and this allows us to essentially have the same code execution path when we're doing all my debugging in debug as we do in release. And this allows me to test that we actually do parse correctly. If I was to bypass the parser, it's kind of like a false positive. Yeah, I could test that I'm generating the assemblies correctly, but I would not be testing the parser. And the parser is the main entry point for humans. So it's much better to go through the front door than to bypass it. So this is why we hook the debugger. Yeah, so debugger is attached belongs to System Diagnostics, if I remember right. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's coming from System Diagnostics. There you go. Yeah, System Diagnostics Debugger. I use this a lot for example, testing Windows services. If I was to make a Windows service using Top Shelf, always use Top Shelf. It's an external NuGet package. Never make Windows services without it. It is glorious. Never make Windows services without it. It's so good. Good morning, Giuseppe. It's good to see you here. So I'm generating Caboodle, but nothing's coming out. It's just the main template. So we use Mustache as our templating language. I'll show you that template. The reason this normally happens is I didn't add a reference to my reference assemblies, is my guess. So let's have a look if I do. Alright, so this is the template, and it's pretty simple. It loops through the namespaces and the delegate namespaces, and for each one of the events, we generate the events, and these are our static extensions. Previously, we saw the speech gesture recognizer. Line 54 or 55 is that. It's what generates that. So it's just that pattern on repeat. So I'm going to be really dodgy here. I'm going to reference the Android version because I know the pattern for Android reference assemblies. I have never code generated net standard yet. So I'm just going to make the Android one get copied into the output directory and then read from the output directory and code generate using the hard code reference to Android and see what comes out. Just experimentation. Alright, so we always wanted to copy. Yeah, querying the assembly versions is one way to set the versions, but actually a way I recommend to do it is do it from the Git metadata. But if you've got something legacy that's very old, you may not be able to do that. But for any new projects, I recommend you use either Git nerd version or Git version. Alright, so I personally use Git version. It's one of the oldest ones out there. It's made by Jake Ginnivan, and it's an external program. And you can use this to do automatic semver. And this is why we have such strict conventions for our commit messages. You might have noticed I was just doing garbage commit messages, because that's okay, because we do it in our own branch. When we merge a pull request, we actually squash those commits. So it doesn't matter if they're garbage messages. When we squash, we rewrite using a convention. And that convention is used and parsed by Git version to automatically apply semver. So if I do merge and squash and I have plus breaking, it'll automatically bump the major version. So that's going to happen when I release V8 from develop to master later this week. I'll merge, but I won't squash for the release. I just will create a merge commit, and then the commit message for that merge commit will say it's a major. Likewise, a new one on the scene is Nodebank Git versioning. I haven't used it, but Aaron Nonatovi swears by it. So choose whichever one you like. This one kind of integrates with MS Build, and Git version integrates with command line based tooling. So it's like A versus B, personal preference. That directory's wrong. Well, it's not generating. I'm going to have to wrap it up and call it quits. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll keep digging at this, and it shouldn't be much left. I just got to run. Alright, until next time, see ya. Bye.